Your host with the most. Coming back at you one more again. We're gonna get in here and happy Father's Day again to all the fathers out there. Be blessed. We're gonna get in here with magic. A Treatise on Esoteric Ethics by Manly P. Hall. Fair use for the purposes of education, criticism, teaching, property which doesn't infringe on the copyright.
Esoteric Ethics by Manly P. Hall. Press. As Paracelsus noted centuries ago, the invisible realms of nature are governed by immutable laws which cannot be violated with impunity. In recent years, researchers in many fields have been exploring the hidden side of life and nature, but few of them have given serious consideration to the moral and ethical responsibilities associated with their labors. The tendency has been to assume that the transcendental arts, like the resources of the physical world, can be exploited without regard for consequences. As in the case of the sorcerers of long ago, the principal objective is the binding of invisible energies for the advancement of personal ambitions. Many innocent persons have become involved in magical practices and disciplines which are detrimental to character and dangerous to physical health. The abuse of powers and forces as yet but partly understood must result in both psychical and psychological tragedy. In this little essay, I have attempted to present in concise form a code of rules which, if faithfully followed, will protect both the individual and society. We are fully aware that the materialistic approach on any level of esoteric knowledge is contrary to the universal plan. We must all accept the burdens that come from the exploration of natural mysteries and dedicate our findings to the glory of God and the well-being of all humanity. Part 1. Children of the False Darkness. 1. For ages, man has labored under a misunderstanding. He has called the perversion of occult power black magic. This is an improper use of the word black, for black does not mean evil. Black is the basic not color of all things, it is the source of all being, and represents the body of the absolute intelligence. All consciousness and light are born out of the chaotic blackness, and cosmic night, with its dark pralaya, is the father-mother of creation. Black darkness must forever shroud the workings of the infinite, and no matter how much light there is in the human soul, it is forever surrounded with the dark, seething substances of chaos. All manifestation is a concretion of dark and unmeasured possibility. 2. The children of the dark birth who labor in the blackness of this substance, molding it into myriads of unseen and unmeasured forms, are not evil. They are the sons of Satan, the Black Father, who, like the very darkness of chaos itself, must in time swallow all of his creations and, in so doing, bring them back to life again from the death that men call creation. We are all born out of this dark abyss and have no right to call it evil. It is the parent of gods and men, forever wrapped in the unexplorable robes of its own mystery. Out of this blackness, nature's unfathomed treasure house, man must exhume the stone of his own soul in the same way that the miner removes the diamond from its sheath of black carbon. 3. The dark lords of Saturn are the builders of the first dawn, the morning of blackness, and from the friction of their strivings were born the first flaming sparks of dawning consciousness. They were the mind-born and other Brahmins of our chain of globes, being delivered from the brain and mouth of Brahma. Their throne is made up of solid substance and the chemicals of solid matter. They are the satanic outpourings, the spirits of cold darkness. 4. In the diagram that follows are shown the 4 births which have come out of the body of Brahm, Bium, the unknown blackness, the X of being. 5. There is a false darkness and a true darkness. The true darkness is the womb of light, the false darkness, the perversion of the light that pours out of the true darkness. Natural darkness is the basic principle of things, while the false darkness is the result of debasing the power of the angels of Satan. 6. The devil, the archetype of misuse, is not a son of Saturn, but a son of man and the false darkness of earth. Man is the incarnation of the germ of mental intelligence, and black magic is possible only to intelligent beings. 7. Absolute spirit, minus all the sheaths of vehicles, unformed and uncompounded, is true darkness, the dimensionless basis of all that is, has been, or ever shall be, and the ultimate veil behind which all creation must retire. 8. Absolute crystallization is the false darkness, and is the colorless vibration at the lower end of the spectrum, opposing the colorless vibration at the upper end of the spectrum. Both ends ultimately are swallowed up in darkness, one in the darkness of spirit, and the other in the darkness of matter. 9. Life lives in darkness and dies in light, form lives in light and dies in darkness, but in dying really comes to life, for life, as we know it, is pure death. 10. Natural darkness is unawakened possibility, false darkness is perverted opportunity. The philosophy of opportunity. 11. If it were not for opportunity, in its various forms, there would be no perversion of power. There is an old saying, opportunity makes the thief. Opportunity is the eternal temptation, without temptation there could be no sinners. Therefore, when the higher powers brought man opportunity, they also brought him sin and death. The one who brought him light brought him also the false darkness. Light and shadow are inseparable, the shadow of light is the false darkness, for the creation of the first automatically brings the second. To be free from temptation, man must be free from reason, to be free from darkness, he must renounce light. Thus he becomes a renouncer of opposites, for in accepting one opposite, he must need to accept the other. 12. Temptation is the price that the human race pays for intelligence, therefore the serpent of wisdom is also the eternal tempter. When man learns with his growing intelligence of the powers of nature and, most of all, of the power that he himself possesses, there comes with that increasing knowledge ever greater responsibility. If man today knew of the God powers that lie dormant within him, he would be the most dangerous creature in the universe, both to himself and to the plan of things. The soul must grow with the knowledge that it gains, otherwise the organisms will ultimately destroy each other. Action and reaction must build strength of character, so that the will is always strong enough to curb the desires. When this is not the case, and desire runs rampant, then, regardless of the position of the organism in the path of unfoldment, a black magician is created. 13. Man has no free will at the present time, but merely the power of choice over a certain area of incidents brought, by his ever-growing consciousness, within the scope of his comprehension. These incidents have been differentiated by his evolving organisms from the dark primum hyle, or the true blackness. The greater his growth, the larger the area of his choices and the greater his independence. Y has been the eternal question in nature, and the letter Y is its phonetic equivalent, for it forms the sling that hurls the white stone at the forehead of Goliath. The latter represents the false darkness, while the stone represents true illumination. 14. In Egypt, the point where the arms of the Y converge was called the forking of the ways. The candidate for spiritual things always stands at the point where the three arms of the Y come together, carrying in his hand the scales of discrimination. As long as he measures blindfolded, his weights will be just, but woe unto him if he removes the blindfold, for the two eyes themselves give birth to good and evil. 15. The diagram accompanying this paragraph, opposite, shows the Y of choice passing upward through the four creations of Brahma. The line passing through the circle shows the path of evolution through those kingdoms of nature where there is no conscious reason, therefore, no revolt against the laws of God. The small ring where the three lines meet shows the present position of the human ego dwelling in the mind of Brahma. From it, the path branches. Man must now choose his own way instead of depending upon nature. He has in spirit and in truth reached the point where the scales of Libra have been inserted by cutting the sign of Scorpio Virgo in two and thus dividing the way of unfoldment. 16. During the first half of this fourth globe, the great ones came to man to strengthen him for his choice and to give him basic instructions through which he should learn to redeem his own soul. We know these demigods now only as mythological characters, but they were the ones who labored with the human mind while it was in the making, and planted therein the seeds of discrimination, which is the ultimate redeemer of human reason. 17. Those who follow the right-hand path enter into one of the 7 rays which lead to immortality, while those who follow the left-hand path enter the ray that leads to ultimate crystallization. Both lead to darkness, one to the immortal darkness of divine union, and the other to the mortal darkness of divine annihilation. The accompanying diagram may make this point clearer, following page. The fruitage of black magic, the left-hand path. Those who take this path, number 1, choose that their immortal spirits shall be the servants of lower bodies, in this way involving themselves in ever denser materiality and enmeshing their consciousness more and more in matter. If this practice is persisted in long enough, the spirit will be unable to disentangle itself from the substances of the lower worlds, and must remain enmeshed therein until the dissolution of the universe at the time of the night of Brahma, when the divine spark is cast into the blackness of the infinite through the rings of Saturn. By taking this path, the ego attains darkness, but it is the darkness of the tomb and of unconsciousness, reached through the path of perversion and negation. Its reward is the black death and the loss of the soul. Such an ego wanders in a great unknown without hope, reason, or understanding, while the endless wheels of chaos dissolve the bodies of which it has failed to make the proper use. The fruitage of white magic, the right-hand path. In taking this path, number 3, the spirit identifies itself with those who choose to liberate the divine essence from its bodies and to have them for servants rather than masters. The consciousness unwinds itself from matter in a spiral motion, and functions in ever finer substances, until it completely disentangles itself from form and consciously attains the resurrection. In so doing, it gains the powers to mold matter into whatever forms are necessary for its labors. It crosses over into the world of spirit, and enters what man can know only as darkness. Light is a form emanation, and when we enter the divine presence, we enter the omnipotent darkness. This in the living shade, over which we have perfect power and which contains within itself all things in unawakened potentiality. We have allied ourselves with the dark cause, the womb of light, and have become molders of the cosmic scheme. Path number 2. This represents the line past not, the non-existing spiritual equator dividing the poles, and is that ridge which divides the black and the white paths, like that mystic line which separates day from night. In this, the spirit ignores opportunity, rejects Rhea, sun, and in this way comes under the law and mystery of the mechanics of opportunity. 18. All action immediately sets into motion the law of reaction, which the ancients have called the law of karma, which is the factor employed by nature for the creation of the soul. The rejecting or ignoring of opportunity, falling under the law of indifference and inertia, fails to result in a reaction. This, in turn, results in the starving of the soul. Those who have ignored experience are called the soulless creations, and are in the same position as those kingdoms which, like the angels, have not been given individual intelligence. The law or reaction immediately starts incorporating into the organisms the fruitage of the outpoured endeavor, in this way slowly transmuting the entire chain of vehicle into intelligence or images of the path chosen by the consciousness. As one pole or the other slowly grows within the being, the atoms of the opposing substances are slowly crowded or forced out, or sloughed off, for lack of cohesion. The battle of these opposing qualities in the various organisms of life forms the groundwork for the great Indian battle of Kurukshetra, or the Armageddon of Christian theology. Through this subtle process, the student who lives the white path slowly starves out or else transmutes the powers of the black ray within himself, that is, if he is able to stand the conflict which must first take place in his bodies. On the other hand, the student who takes the black path slowly eliminates or destroys all of the finer principles within, until he becomes a very demon incarnate. Once having destroyed conscience, he does evil for the joy of it. Definitions of magic. Magic is the art of manipulating the unseen forces of nature. A magician is one who is capable of juggling the 4 elements of bodies. A magician is one who is capable of consciously molding the substances of matter of the 3.5 worlds of material substance. 19. A white magician is one who is laboring to gain the confidence of the powers that be, and to prove, through the purity of his life and the sincerity of his motive, his worthiness to be entrusted with the great arcane, the wand of the Magus. A black magician is one who seeks to gain authority over spiritual powers by means of force rather than by merit. In other words, he is one who is trying to storm the gates of heaven. He is one who is seeking spiritual power and occult dominion with an ulterior motive. The black magician's motto is, "Might is right, survival of the fittest." The white magician's motto is, "Right is might, survival of all." Grey magic is the unconscious or subconscious perversion of power. Yellow magic is the failure to learn how to prevent the perversion of power. Black magic is the use of spiritual powers to gratify animal or selfish proclivities. White magic is the right use of spiritual power, consciously and objectively. 20. Every living person is in one of these 4 classes. It is important that each should analyze himself and see just which class he is in. There is nothing in all the universe so subtle as the powers of false darkness. We must go over our lives every day, for we never reach a place of safety. The more power we have, the greater light we have, the stronger the temptation to abuse it or to use it for self-gratification. We must learn to realize that the greater the knowledge, the greater the penalty for abusing it. The sin that is excusable in the child is unforgivable in a man. Motive. 21. Motive is the key to the problem of magic. Even the greatest of white magicians can become a degenerate in an instant if his motive becomes unworthy. The white magician serves humanity, the black magician seeks to serve himself. 22. The black magic of the past, the darkness that sank Atlantis when man made slaves of the demons of the elements and chained them to do his bidding, still survives to this day. The black magic of the Middle Ages, with its witchcraft and orgies, is not dead, only its form has changed like all other forms in nature. It has incarnated again in our age with all its power and fury. It is gnawing as in the days of old at the very heart of our civilization, and if left unredeemed, will tear down and destroy our race. Under the garb of right, it masquerades as the messenger of the Most High, yet under its oral promises, forever lurks the menace of the goat of Mendes. In its false shadows hide the furies of hell and the vampires of the astral plane. 23. As the black magician has no legitimate means of securing his power, not having passed through the school of reclamation, he wanders the earth like the werewolves of old, vampirizing humanity to secure the vitality which he must have to continue his operations. 24. All who are not consciously fortified in the path of right are possible victims of these monsters of iniquity, all who are not consciously on the white path, and firmly established in the way of sincerity and truth, are in eternal danger of these harpies who float like soulless specters on the tide of evolution. They have the powers of invoking the demons who serve them, while the impartial natural law is misused hourly, that they may perpetuate themselves. The power of light in their hands becomes but a scepter of death, for many hands wield spiritual powers whose hearts are dead, whose minds are rotting dens of iniquity and whose souls have long since bid them goodbye. They are lost beyond recall to this life wave, for they have killed out even the germ of good within themselves. They battle on, however, clinging desperately to life at any price, realizing only too well that eternity holds nothing for them. May the mercy of God rest upon. Spirit is matter inverted, and matter is spirit inverted. The beast is God defiled. Part 2. The source of power in magic. 25. All occultists realize that there is but one source of vitality in the universe, and that is the emanation ring of the universal logos. This power is not split up until it reaches the lower worlds, where it grades itself according to vibratory rate. Magicians, both black and white, draw their power from the same great stream which pours eternally from the center of the causal being and spreads along the lines of the radius to the circumference. The difference between black and white magic lies not in the force used, which is always divine power, but in the manner that it is secured and employed. The source of the black magician's power is said to be the devil, to whom the infernal conjurer must sell his soul in exchange for the cooperation of this evil spirit in the attaining of his nefarious ends. In order to clarify this problem, let us analyze the composition of the devil, who is in reality the most abused creature in the universe, for man, through his perversion of divine energy, forever transmutes his own deity into a demon. The personality of evil. 26. For many ages, theologians have insisted upon personalizing natural principles. All the great forces of being are dressed up like puppets in a Punch and Judy show, and have the pronouns him or her applied to them. This is one of the main reasons for the inability of theologians to read the Bible correctly or intelligently. They are unable to see the abstract power under the concrete symbol. For ages, religion has made the devil a human being and, incidentally, human beings devils. This is incorrect, both in principle and application. The devil is a natural principle, the product of natural means, and the ultimate of natural perversion. The devil is a compound complex creature, dividing itself up into all the sins of the calendar. Studied as a group entity, the devil is the spirit of perversion or negation, the created principle of misuse. 27. Evil is not a false thing, there are no false things in the creation of a true God. Evil is an abuse or misuse of power. It is the crossing of currents, or an interference with the plan. We may say, as one definition of evil, that it is the right thing in the wrong place. The worst evil in nature can be transmuted into good by the simple process of adjustment. The average intelligent or consciously functioning man is sufficient to make a god out of any demon by the simple process of inversion. Likewise, he is capable of making a demon or evil thing out of any good thing or god by placing it in improper relationship to other things. The word devil is used to cover the two excesses of polarity in nature, for when uncurbed, either will destroy the organism that man is seeking to construct. The two great demons of creation are Satan, Saturn, and Lucifer, Mars, according to the Greeks, Venus. 28. Satan is the spirit of caution, prudence, and when pervert, negation. At his door are laid the sins of omission. Few realize that man is responsible for the things he has not done. That is part of the law. It is just as wrong not to do the right things as it is to do the wrong thing. Satan inhibits, he draws back, he holds aloof. He is keyed to crystallization, and his unhampered reign would result in cosmic inertia, for he destroys action. He is symbolized as the reaping skeleton, for he governs the bones of man and the planets, which are the bones of the macrocosmic man. He is the cold demon of ice that freezes the spirit in the blood, and is given dominion over the tomb of unrealized hopes. He is the spirit that finally calls unto himself all things which have poured out through his mystic rings. Lucifer, on the other hand, is the spirit of excess, the flaming son of rashness and the ruler of sense gratification, over which he wields dominion with a scepter of serpents. Those who fall victims to his power do deeds of violence, not because he wills it so, but because they have this spirit of energy and pervert him themselves. Lucifer is the light bringer, he is transmuted by man into the fiery demon of war and hate. His power is used by man as the inspiration of lust and passion, while he would have it used only for the attainment of ideality. Uncurbed, those who fall under the sway of his influence, dash madly to their own destruction. He always is opposed to Satan, seeking to snatch the soul of man from the cold embrace of Saturn. He is the heat that incubates the soul, but man uses him as a flame to burn up reason. 29. All the powers in nature naturally serve good, but as they are the servants of those capable of wielding authority, man makes out of them barbarous spirits who damn his own world. Between these two thieves of excess, Satan, utter coldness, and Lucifer, blazing heat, hangs the spirit of man, crucified like the Christ of the sublime allegory, seared by the burning fire of one, chilled to freezing by the negation of the other. Here is the great truth. Suppose either of these forces which man has made into demons, were to withdraw, what would happen to the plan of being? 30. If Satan were to go out of the scheme, man would be burned up by the fiery passions of Mars and the angels of Lucifer. Without the chill, caution, and curbing of Saturn, his soul would speedily be lost in utter debauchery and licentiousness. If on the other hand, Lucifer should withdraw, man would soon be a stone again, incapable of incentive, of motion or emotion, and chained, like the sufferers of Dante's Inferno, by the icy fingers of death. 31. Thus it is that the eternal battle of these great principles, like night and day, tempers the blasts, and blends them to the good of man, that he may ultimately reach the goal to which he aspires. Such is the mystery of night and day. If the sun were to shine all the while, man would be burned up with its rays and so vitalyzed that he would speedily turn into ether, while if night forever enshrouded him, he would gradually return to crystal. 32. Satan and Lucifer are not evil, but are two of the greatest powers in all creation. Without them, the universe could not come into being, for Mars, with the Lucifer angels, is the dynamo of our solar system, and without them, the planets could not keep up their endless march. On the other hand, Satan builds the earth and worlds by his crystallization, without which we would have no solid substances to form bodies. It is not force or power, but the perversion of force which constitutes evil. The magician says, demon is deus inversus. We may say, the demon is power perverted. Therefore man, the perverter of power, is the creator of demons, because he is the lowest creature capable of exercising authority from within his own being. The lower kingdoms are forced to react upon group impression and obey unquestioningly. 33. In Paradise Lost, Milton tells how sin and death were launched into the world as the result of the disobedience of man. Satan, as prudence, negation, and crystallization, represents death, who eternally inhibits his creation, while Lucifer, as energy and action, represents sin, the positive expression of misuse. They go about ministering to the needs of creation as constructive and helpful powers, until the black magician, with the innate perversion of his own soul, bends them from their appointed way and launches them upon man as spirits of hell. The ancients called the forces of nature the one-eyed gods because they were no respecters of persons, but fulfilled their appointed paths, whether it be to kill or resurrect. The individualizing consciousness of the 7 rings of sparks cast from the universal pralaya must become the one molder of these forces, and the karmic responsibility for this molding, and the expressions of these forces, rest not upon the forces, but upon human and superhuman intelligences. 34. The black magician is one who learns to manipulate these forces for selfish and destructive purposes, his own aggrandizement of the fulfillment of desire, while the white magician prays that he may learn to manipulate them as God would have them manipulated, for the salvation of the divine creation. The powers are in the hands of those capable of invoking them. It makes no difference whether for good or ill. For this reason, the schools of white magic conceal these powers from man until, through growth, purification, and unfoldment, he gains the proper incentive for using them. The power of black magic. 35. We must disabuse our minds of the idea that the black magician cannot injure us because we are in the right, or that he is weak because he is evil. This is a foolish concept, taught to prevent man from strengthening himself, and is propaganda of the black path itself. It is just as foolish as to say that if a prize fighter were boxing a baby, the baby would win the fight because he had no ulterior motive, or because his soul is undefiled. Thousands of people have not enough ambition to develop the necessary strength. In fact, they do not even know that their soul is worth saving. They are living honestly, they are good Christian people, but so purely negative that they are positively advertising the fact that they are easy marks for anyone desiring to avail himself of the opportunity. They are not black themselves, but they are the type that helps to make possible the perpetuation of black magic. 36. That right will ultimately triumph is undeniable, and that the black magician will fall victim to his own excess is a literal truth, but many must bow their heads to the tyrant while he passes, and only those who are strong are in safety. Individuals who have mastered nature's forces to such a degree that they can stop the heartbeat of a person on the other side of the earth with a mental ray, or burn a 2-inch hole through a 1.5 feet of ebony with astral fire, are dangerous wherever met, and the average so-called good person has absolutely no chance of withstanding the blows of black magic. Only fools underestimate this danger. Wise men protect themselves against it, for an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The white ray places the shield of David between them and the dark forces, and in this way they protect themselves. 37. We have reached a period in the history of the world when ignorance is criminal and deserves the heaviest penalty. Ignorance is not black magic, but it is the greatest ally that the black magician has in the world today. People who do not know any better are constantly doing someone else's dirty work. That is the fruitage of their indolence. When we attempt to break nature's laws, we tear down our bodies and render our consciousness negative, in this way opening those centers of our being through which we can be influenced and often obsessed by the black forces. This is almost as great a crime as perpetrating black magic yourself. People must realize that they cannot straddle the fence between right and wrong. They are either on one side or the other, and while doubt remains, we can count them as being on the black side, for doubt itself is an attribute of Satan. Those who are not striving for the highest, partake of the lowest. 38. Let us meet this problem fairly, neither with fear nor with too much confidence. In humility and contrition of spirit, let us realize that the work being done in the world by the black forces all the time is very real. Recognizing this, let us band ourselves together and join in this righteous war, standing side by side with the brothers of light in the battle for human souls. 39. When light comes, the shadow goes. Where the sword of enlightened spirit strikes, the hosts of darkness and negation are dissolved, but remove the light for only a second, and they return as powerful as before. The powers of darkness work alike through the thoughtless and the silly, the arrogant and self-righteous, and many of our most earnest truth-seekers are unconscious channels for the forces of evil, since in moments of weakness, they allow the beast to attain mastery over them and, through them, to attack the world. 40. Learn to discriminate between light and darkness in the world you live in, and watch your heart night and day that there may issue from it nothing that can be used as a weapon for the destruction of light. Do not worry over your past misdeeds, for worry itself breeds demons, but eliminate them from your aura, planting instead good seeds with constructive labors. Feel your own personal responsibility in this problem, for the realization of responsibility is good for the soul. Demonstrate this acceptance of responsibility to the higher powers of cosmos, for when your light shines out, the spirits of evil must slink into the corners and cover their faces with the shadow of their cloaks. The demoniacal powers of the ancients. 41. Let us now consider those strange creatures of other planes, some said to be souls lost from our own life waves, whom black magicians use in their conjurations. Many of the transcendentalists of the past have forced these elementals and nature spirits to serve them, as in the days of the lost Atlantis. But the true black magician does not work through the ethers, which are the home of the etheric elementals. He works through the entities who dwell in the astral light or the animal magnetism of the lower astral plane. The true black magician can become, and usually is, clairvoyant, but he can never go any higher than the astral world. To this plane he is tied by his passions, hates, incantations, and the animal nature which is the basis of black magic. 42. The ancients claimed that there was a hierarchy of demons for each of the sins of man, and that in reality, the demons were, in most cases, the incarnated principles of these sins. By this it is understood that the animal excesses of man build, on the lower planes of the astral world, strange creatures, some resembling debased human beings, and others shaped like animals, lizards, snakes, and other reptiles. The power of the black magician lies in his ability to direct these soulless creatures, which, while not in reality individualized things, still have tremendous power over their own essences, both in the body of nature and of individuals. 43. We seldom realize that our passions and hates create these demoniacal beings in the super-physical world, but this is one of the secrets of black magic. Every evil or debased thought and emotion of man helps to build these tearing, rending creatures, the innate qualities of which become, in the hands of those who know, agencies for the destruction of the powers of light. It also seems part of the plan that those who chain these demons shall themselves fall victims to their own slaves, for one after another, the black magicians are sucked into the maelstrom of the astral hell. The lower planes of the astral world are the three hells of religion, and are the homes of these excess-created beings that battle each other with never-ending fury. 44. The black magician, becoming a conscious channel for these forces, launches a stream of hell demons into the world. In so doing, he sells his own soul, for these forces must pass through his own astral body, in exchange for the powers that these demons will give him over his fellow men. The powers of these elemental creatures are practically unlimited, and there are many depraved souls who are glad to barter their immortal spirits for the power which these demons give them over the material world. 45. There are two kinds of black magicians. 1. Those who use the demons of the astral plane for their villainy, which they invoke through necromancy and invocation, and 2. Those who create their own demons and launch them against the world. The first group does the greatest harm to the world, but the second injure themselves more. The first group is composed mostly of conscious black magicians, while there are many in the second group who are totally ignorant of what they are doing. Some never learn their mistake until the demons they have created come back to the persons who sent them forth. 46. The white magician uses none of the powers of the animal world in his work, but rather seeks to transmute the poles of the beast within himself into higher and finer qualities. The white magician labors entirely with the finer forces of the elemental planes. He is a builder, not a destroyer, and seeks to liberate rather than to dominate his fellow creatures. The white magician has dedicated his soul to the immortal light, while the black magician has sold his for mortal glory. The grimoires of the Middle Ages are filled with chants and charms for the invoking of spirits. History is filled with stories of black magicians, but the true student of occult science must have nothing to do with these things other than to protect himself against them. Spiritual research. 47. Do not experiment. In spiritual things experimentation is usually fatal, and unnumbered students have gone to untimely graves and lunatic asylums, or have become obsessed while they were trying something. Keep away from the phenomenalism. There is nothing in it for the true student. He is not seeking to gain salvation through his eyes, but through his soul. Phenomenalism never appeals to the higher side of the nature, but, at most, satisfies only inquisitiveness. As of old, so today, the cry is seldom, save souls, but is usually, show us miracles. 48. Have you ever felt that a person you have met is evil? Have you ever felt a strange repugnance for a certain person? These are the elementals and thought forms which permeate the aura of the person